My name is Maria. I am the Executive Director of the Hellenic-American Cultural Center and Museum, and I want to welcome you all here tonight for this special presentation that we're co-hosting with the Oregon Archaeological Society, excuse me. So thank you to our partners, and if you'll allow me to welcome former President and present board member of the Oregon Archaeological Society, Penn McBain. She'll introduce Dr. Pike. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So I have the distinct honor to introduce Dr. Scott Pike, our colleague and friend, who is Professor of Environmental Sciences and Archaeology at Willamette University. Currently, Dr. Pike teaches a number of classes in geoarchaeology at Willamette, and in that capacity has mentored a number of students on field schools in Greece over the past several years. I have had the pleasure of working with Dr. Pike over the past 5 years on an archaeological set of excavations in Salem, tracing the history of the Jason Lee ministry, one of the first missionaries to arrive in the Willamette Valley in 1830. Dr. Pike earned his PhD from the University of Georgia. He won a Fulbright Fellowship to Greece to work on his dissertation, the Archaeological Geology and Geochemistry of Pentelic Marble, Mount Pentelicon, Attica, Greece, and that was over a 4-year period, including 2 years of his fellowship and 2 years with the Wiener Laboratory. Since then, Dr. Pike has continued to conduct research on Mount Pentelicon outside Athens and has partnered in his research with several museums, including the Acropolis Museum, the National Museum, the Propylae, the Piraeus Museum, Ancient Court, and the Golandris Museum of Cycladic Art. This summer, Dr. Pike will continue to work with the Wiener Lab and will be working with the Ministry of Culture to use drones to monitor the impact of cultural heritage of the last summer's forest fires in East Attica. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Scott Pike this evening to his lecture on discovering ancient Greek marble, isotopes, drones, and the heritage of the Cycladic quarrying. Thank you.
Thank you, Penn. Very nice to be here, and I've had a lot of time in Greece, so I know how important it is for me to set a timer, so I don't go too long. Well, thank you, everybody. What I'm going to do tonight is talk about a recent project that I am working on that actually started in the 1990s. It had a bit of a delay. But before I go further, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I tend to wander when I lecture. I will try to be stationary. I see there's a microphone, so hopefully cement me in place. Okay, so for this talk, there's always the question, what is archaeology? Why do we do archaeology? Maybe one of the bigger questions, what is it worth? And I think we have a lot of value out of archaeology, and as Ian Hodder, a famous archaeologist, put it, archaeology is really about telling stories. It's about telling stories of the past, telling stories about an artifact, a people, a culture. And the work that we do is really trying to convey a story. The other thing about archaeology, and I didn't put a bullet up for this, is we work with very little data. We don't know a lot of information. So we tell stories supported by the data, but they might be a little wrong. It's okay. But as long as we understand their stories and we get meaning out of them, I think that's super important. So, we have famous Greek historians, or Greek storytellers. Here's the famous poet of Homer. Now, we don't even know if Homer was real. We think he was real. He wrote some pretty epic stuff. And I was looking for a statue of Homer online, and I ended up at the site of Etsy. And so this is a 3D printed statue of Homer, but we know his story. So if you want him, you can get him. He's $29.99 on Etsy. So here's a story of a statue, famous story, not based in archaeology at all. And he's, Indiana Jones is that, actually a really horrible archaeologist. But he's working on a statue. It's a very important item for him. He needs to be in a museum. That's all he ever says. Needs to be in a museum. But that's not how archaeologists really approach the story of a statue. So what I'm going to do is talk about marble statues that are coming to us from the Cycladic Islands. So this is a statue that is from a quarry on Naxos. We're going to come back and visit this quarry. But you can see that the statue is incomplete. It's not finished. It's missing its head. It was broken. We think it was being transported out of the quarry. It broke, and then the workers went, tossed it to the side and left it there. So I'm going to talk about a story of a particular statue. But let's make sure we understand our geography and make sure we know where we're looking at. So here is Greece, and we're going to be looking at the Cycladic Islands. And these are the Cycladic Islands here. Most of our story is going to take place in Naxos and Delos. I'm going to take a little tangent, and we'll talk a little bit about Keros as well. So this is where our story is taking place. And this is the culprit. This is the study. This is the foot. So in the 1990s, a colleague, Ken Sheedy, came up to me and said, there is this interesting statue on Delos. It's in fragments. It's in these different parts. We don't know if the statue really fit together or not. We don't know where the statue came from. We think we do. There's some evidence, which I'll show you in a minute, but this is a really interesting statue. And I was going to Belgium to visit my wife's family, and I just hopped on a train, which then went under the water and took me to London, and went to the British Museum, where this foot of the statue is currently resides. So this is the foot, and you can see the toes, and underneath the toes is a large plinth. So this would have been the base that the statue stood on. And this is a diagram showing you where that plinth would have been, where the foot would have been slotted in. So the idea was for me to go and analyze this foot, then to go back to Greece and analyze the rest of the fragments to investigate if they were all of one stone, if these fragments actually fit together. So I collected this foot. This was 1997. Not the whole foot, just a little piece of foot. And I went back to Greece, and about 3 days later, Greece had put in a ban on all marble sampling for scientific analysis. And that ban lasted for about 15 years. So the project and our story were put on hold. But let's talk a little bit about Delos and the statue that was there. So Delos, neighboring island to Naxos, relatively small island, but played a very important role in the ancient Aegean, in the Archaic period and in the Classical period. It was a place where different Greeks from all around the region would come, and they had games like the Panathenaic Games. Every 4 years they had these festivals and athletic events and poetry events and music events. And when you were on Delos, there was peace. Even if you were warring people against each other, you're on Delos, it was peaceful. But Naxos, being the neighboring island, had a strong influence on Delos in the Archaic period. In the Classical period, Athens sort of became did become the dominant force. We're going to be focusing in the Archaic, during that 7th, 8th century BC, 8th, 7th century BCE, 6th century BCE. And these very famous lion statues, which are still present in Delos today, made of Naxian marble, made of marble from the island of Naxos. Here's just an overview of the site itself. It's a beautiful site. No one lives there today. Well, that's not true. A couple of French people live there. The French school in Athens has been excavating the site, so they have a couple residents there, but no one else resides there. You have to take a boat in the morning and make sure you catch it at 3:30 in the afternoon to come off. But this is the site today. And this is a plan of the site. A plan in archaeology is a map. So, and I want to focus on this structure here. This is number 7. This is the Ecos of the Naxians. So an Ecos was, it's not a temple. It wasn't dedicated to any particular god, but instead it was a place where the Naxians would congregate. Maybe a guild house would be something similar. And it was one of the monuments that the Naxians built for themselves at Delos. I should also say Delos is thought to be the birthplace of Apollo and Artemis. So there's a lot of worshiping to Apollo and to Artemis, but mostly to Apollo, at the site. So at the side of this Ecos, right about here, today resides this large base. This is a single piece of marble, and inside the marble is a hole, so at the top, and inside this hole fits perfectly the plinth and the foot from the British Museum. So we know that the British Museum foot went here. Now you can't quite see it with this image, but there is some ancient Greek script on the side of our base here. And here it is again. Now I cannot read ancient Greek, but it has been published, and what the writing says is, I am of the same stone, statue, and base. Now they didn't have commas in their script, so take this comma if you want to or not. And it sort of matters, because what does that sentence mean? I am of the same stone, statue, and base. It could mean a lot of different things, right? Is the statue and base just saying it's from Naxos? One type of marble. Is it from one quarry? I am of this same stone from a quarry. Or is it possible that this is one stone, like the entire thing was a single stone? One large piece of marble that was carved to make this statue. And then who was the statue of? Well, a couple centuries later, there was a remodeling of this base, some new chiseling, and the words, the Naxians to Apollo, were added. So we believe the statue was probably a statue to Apollo, dedicated by the Naxians. The marble is Naxian marble. From appearance, you can tell that really large grains. You look at it, and the grains are huge. That's a telltale sign of Naxian marble. So we think this statue, well, we know that there's a statue, probably to Apollo, quite large, of one marble. We're not too sure what that means. One piece of marble or one type of marble? Okay. This is a rendering of what the statue may have looked like outside the Ecos. Okay? That is a person for scale. This is a very large statue. As the foot indicates, it was very large. The kouros form, the statue form in the archaic, it was a common type of statue. And basically, it was a nude male, stood like this, left leg forward, maybe an arm up, maybe 2 arms up. But this was the form. So we have the foot. So just from the foot alone, we can get a really good sense of the size of the statue. And it's about 9 meters. So we go back to that question. What is this stone, one type of stone? Is it a single stone? Or fragments of stone? And can something really be that big and be one stone? Well, yes, it can. On the island of Naxos, at the quarry of Apollonas, there's an unfinished kouros, still in situ, in the ground, in the quarry pit, as it was being excavated. Just to give you a sense of scale, here's some students from last year. I'm taking the tallest one, that's Spencer. He's 6'1". So this gives you a sense of how big this is. And you can see the outstretched arms, and you can see that the left foot is slightly forward. And the length of this is about 9 meters. So it is possible to have a single stone. And this is a pretty good indication that maybe it was of one stone, literally one stone. So let's look at some more evidence then of what the statue may have looked like. Okay, when we go to Delos and you look at the remains that are still on the island, we can find a very large upper torso. So this is a photograph of the upper torso. You can see the back here, the front, the pecs. Damaged today, but you know, we can see it's a torso. There's a hand for scale, someone's fingers. Okay, there's also a lower torso. Okay, and we can see the form of the lower torso. There's some later work being done on it as well. So we have a foot, an upper torso, and a lower torso that have all been assigned to this statue of Apollo of the Naxos, this Colossus statue. In the museum, in the Delos Museum, in the storage room, there's a left hand ascribed to the statue. In the museum at Delos, there's another left hand ascribed to the statue of Apollo. That alone should tell you something's probably wrong with our story. Or we get creative and say, well, maybe the one hand fell off or was damaged and they replaced it with another hand. Or maybe there were just two statues and we only have evidence of one, or maybe two, with two left hands. Okay, so how do all these things fit together? Okay, so are the fragments of the Colossus of Apollo of the dedicated by the Naxos, is it from one stone block? Interesting. And then where's that block from? Where's that marble from, assuming it is one stone? Where are all these pieces coming from? And I typed this then this morning. I said, really, there are three questions. Is that what's going on with the hands, right? Why do we have two left hands? Okay. So I'm going to address this question. And to do that, I'm going to change hats from archaeology to geology, because I am a geologist. That's what my degree is in. And so I'm going to do a couple slides of geology, because archaeology is a wonderful discipline. It's broad and pulls in everything. So we're going to go look at some geology here. So on the left, you see a geotectonic map of Greece. So this might be a way a geologist would see Greece, looking at different geologic units of material, of rock in Greece. The section down here, this is called the Attic Cycladic Massif. And what these rocks are showing us, or telling us, is these rocks underwent generally a very similar geologic history. They were once deposits, deposited in an ocean, that then got buried and then were metamorphosed in a very active tectonic area. And therefore they're all metamorphic, very similar types of rocks. And you can see in there, I put some stars on the map. These stars are locations of major quarries. So we have the Naxian quarry here. We have the Parian marbles here. Parian marble, fine-grained, super white, translucent, beautiful, probably the best marble in the world, and just phenomenal marble. Pendeli, which is where I did my dissertation outside of Athens. Mount Hymettos, not the best quality marble. It's gray, sort of dull, but used a lot in like the foundations of structures. And over here in Anatolia, in Turkey, yes, they have geology. This is a Greek map. They didn't want to show the Turkish geology at the time. There are some quarries in Aphrodisias, Marmara up here, and then this is another Greek quarry, Thasos, but this marble easily to distinguish. So these are our marble types. And then here is Naxos. Naxos is a very interesting island geologically because I said it a little earlier, marble is metamorphic. And what that means was it was once limestone, deposited in an ocean, but it went under high pressure and high temperature, and the calcite grains of that limestone changed into coarser, larger grains. It never melted. If it became a melt, it would become an igneous rock, a magma. It never melted, but the crystals changed. It metamorphosed, metamorphic rock. And the grades of metamorphism can be identified in the rock. When you have a high-grade metamorphic rock, lots of high pressure, lots of high temperature, the grains are going to be quite large. Lower grade metamorphism, smaller grains. Naxos has the highest grade metamorphism in the world. It goes from high grade to low grade in a very small amount of space. So geologists go there and study it to try to learn about metamorphism there. So there's a lot of geologic study on Naxos. So when I go there and say, hi, I'm a geologist, they go, yeah, so. No, they have a wonderful geology museum. And if you're ever in Naxos, I recommend you go. It's probably the most instructive geology museum I've ever been to. It's actually fantastic. But anyway, I digress. So the two stars here are indicating the known ancient quarries on Naxos. I showed you the big 9-meter tall statue that came from up here. And then the first picture with me standing next to it came from Melanis, which is right here. We know these are ancient because we see the ancient artifacts still there. These are the only known ancient marbles, quarries on Naxos. Okay, so we have to remember that. Two quarries, known ancient marbles, Melanis, Apollonius. No one fainted? Good. Okay. I always look it up. So the work I do with marbles is stable isotope geochemistry. What I am looking at are the ratios of stable isotopes of the marble. So I'm going to quickly go over a semester's worth of isotope studies. So calcite is the main mineral of marble. It's made of calcium, carbon, and oxygen, CaCO3. I want to focus on the calcium carbonate, the carbonate, the C and the O, the carbon and the oxygen. Okay? All marble has carbon and oxygen in it. It's part of its definition. Okay. Now, the other thing, okay, so hopefully we're there. Okay, carbon and oxygen. Now, for both carbon and oxygen, we have isotopes. And isotopes are elements. They're the same atom, the same element, but they might weigh a little different. So let's talk with carbon first. So you can see I list 3 isotopes here: carbon-12, carbon-13, and carbon-14. And this, the diagram is below. What defines a carbon is the number of protons in the nucleus. Protons are positively charged little things, but they have mass. So what we have in the neutrons, in the nucleus of an isotope, of a carbon isotope, are 6 protons, by definition. We also have neutrons. Some carbons have 6 neutrons. They also have a little bit of mass. Some carbon has 7 neutrons. They have a little bit of mass. So the carbon with 6 neutrons and 6 protons is carbon-12. We add those units. The carbon with 6 protons and 7 neutrons, carbon-13. Okay? Now these carbon are stable. Once they form, they do not decay. You may have heard of carbon-14, radiogenic carbon, radioactive carbon. That's why it's in green. Carbon-14, different game. 6 protons, 8 neutrons. It's unstable, it decays, and it's radioactive. We're not going to worry about it. After 70,000 years, there's no carbon-14 left anyway. These rocks are millions of years old. We won't have carbon-14. So we're only going to focus on stable carbon. Carbon-12, carbon-13. There's the same story with oxygen. Oxygen has 8 protons in the nucleus and either 8, 9, or 10 neutrons. Add those up, we get our isotopes. Now with carbon, almost 99% of all the carbon that makes you up, is carbon-12. About 1%, a little over 1% is carbon-13. With oxygen, 99.76% of oxygen is the lighter oxygen-16. There's hardly any oxygen-17, but it's there. And there's a little bit more oxygen-18. Okay? So the oxygen that we're breathing in, and it's making up our bones as well, most of it's 16, but there's a little bit that's 18. Okay. And what we're interested in is looking at the ratios of carbon-12 to 13 and and oxygen-16 to oxygen-18. And we take our sample, we take it to a lab, run it through an instrument called a mass spectrometer, and we get our isotopes. And then we can look at the ratio. And there's an equation that we do, I'm not going to go into this, but the value that we end up with is, we call it delta, lowercase delta. So the delta values I'm about to show you are the ratios of 12 to 13 and 16 to 18. Now this becomes important because when you take marble samples and you measure their stable isotopes of carbon and oxygen, and you plot them on a scatter plot diagram. Here's oxygen 18, here's oxygen 13, and my mentor, my advisor, Norman Hers, spent the 1970s, this was a terrible thing he had to do, going around Greece, going to all the marbles, collecting samples, all the quarries. So he collected hundreds of samples. Tough job. Anyway, and he went back to the university and he measured mass spectrometry. He used a mass spectrometer, measured the values, plotted them on a scatter plot diagram like this, and then drew boundaries around each of the sample sites. Okay? So, for instance, Pentelicon, where I did my dissertation, is this big solid color right here. Naxos, what we're interested in, is this very long one right here. Okay, so the idea is that we can use the isotopes to help distinguish between the different marble types. Now, if you have a sample that plots here, and you go to a museum, you take a bit of sample, we don't know where it's from, and it plots right here, okay, that's a problem. We can't really distinctively say where it's from. But if it plots here, we can go, oh, that's Pentelicon. Or if it plots here, that's Naxos. Right? So this is the idea of the stable isotope analysis. Now, Norm published this in 1987. We've become a little more sophisticated with how we do this. We still are working on stable isotopes, but the database is more refined. Norm grabbed samples and just said, this is from one quarry area, but he didn't map where he got them from. My dissertation at Mount Pentelicon was I went to every quarry, mapped it, collected multiple samples from every quarry, and when Norm's database had 35 samples, mine had 632. And I'm still working on the data. It's good to have students. My students are working on the data, and I'm going, yes, yes, no. So anyway, so here's Naxos, and here's the database that Norm published. So what I did in 1998, when I went back to the University of Georgia with that one sample of the foot, remember when I first collected the sample, I said, well, I can't go collect the rest of the statue pieces, but at least I have 1 foot. Let's see what it does. So I ran the sample, and it's a solid triangle here. Oxygen is on the bottom, carbon is on the side here. And this database that you see right here, this is Norm's Naxian database. And for those closer might be able to see this, the circles are from Apollonis, and the squares are Melanus. So these samples are Melanus. Apollonus actually sort of distinctive. It's sort of off to the side. It's a little, what we would say, lower oxygen values. So that's interesting. The isotopes are distinguishing different quarries, different regions on the mountain. But this sample plotted here. And this doesn't quite fit. Almost, but not quite. But what it does do, it fits with the set of marbles that Norm called the Southeast Naxos marbles. So somewhere in the southeast, he collected these samples. And our foot plots in this region. So our foot comes from Southeast Naxos. The problem is, we have no idea where that is. Norm didn't create a map. And unfortunately, he passed away before I had this data. So I can't ask him. And it's unfortunate. I have his database, I have all his samples, I just unfortunately don't have the notes. So I don't know where these samples came from. So we know that there's Southeast Naxos. Isn't this fun? Okay, this is fun. This is better than whips and guns and things. Anyway, okay, so now we're totally perplexed because we have a marble that comes from the southeast of Naxos, and we don't know where that is, other than Southeast Naxos. Then the story gets a little more intriguing. This is when we divert our story to Keros. On the island of Keros, in the 60s and 70s, there were discoveries made of cycladic figurines. It's called the Keros hoard. Their provenance is questionable. Exactly how they were discovered is debatable. And the pieces are in several different museums now. But what we find in this hoard is a bunch of broken cycladic figurines, intentionally broken. I think it was a couple hundred. And they've been analyzed. And this is where they plot. This bit. Colin Renfrew, a very famous archaeologist, recently passed away, and Colin Renfrew, sorry. And Paul Boyd have been excavating recently at Keros and the neighboring islands and Descalo. They've also unearthed other sort of caches, these basins full of these broken, intentionally broken cycladic figurines. And because there's so many of them, it's a term I don't like to use too much in archaeology, but it was ritual. I don't really know what ritual means, but there was something going on, something religious. There was a purpose why people were coming to Descalo, to Keros, depositing and breaking and then depositing these cycladic figurines, which is interesting. The project that Boyd and Renfrew have been doing here is looking at that marble, trying to understand where that marble came from, also looking at obsidian and looking at ceramics, looking at trying to understand what was going on in this region. It looks like people were coming from, again, all over the Cyclades, and maybe even further afield, coming here, giving some sort of dedication. And Renfrew and Boyd are trying to understand what that route was, what that trade route was. The obsidian's pretty easy to work with. The ceramics, we have good typology. The marble is a headache. The marble is difficult. But they could tell some of it was Naxian because of the really coarse grain size. But where on Naxos did it come from? So for 3 seasons, Renfrew and Boyd moved their project over to Naxos. And they wanted to find the quarries. And they also just wanted to find if there were settlements on the southeast coast of Naxos that would have had closer exchange to Keros. So they did what's called a pedestrian survey. They took their team and they walked the ground in a very organized, systematic way, and they looked for what they could find on the ground and recorded it and recorded its location. So what we have here is the ceramic density. I can read it from an angle. So this is where they found concentrations of ceramic, and this is where they found concentrations of obsidian. Okay? Put that together, and what they think they have identified is areas of density where people would have lived in the Bronze Age. So that's what they're doing here. But you know what they did not find? A white marble quarry. So, Renfrew had then worked with a couple of colleagues, Maniatis, who ran the Demokritos, the Archaeometry Center at Demokritos in Athens, who's a physicist, does great physics, not a geologist, no, just saying. And anyway, so he had Maniatis come to Naxos to collect marble samples to try to find the southeast marble quarries. And all these red dots are the locations where Maniatis collected the samples. And they did not find the southeast. The isotopes of these samples did not fit the southeast quarry from Norm's database. Nor were any of these white marbles. They were mostly blue and dark gray. So that's a problem. They've sampled the southeast. There's no marble there. No white marble there. Do you see an area where they did not sample? Right here. They didn't sample this area. Sort of this area here. So, side note, there's a rule in archaeology lectures. One, you always have to show an Indiana Jones picture, and then the second one is you always have to have a Google image, a Google map. So, just following the rules. All right. So this area wasn't surveyed by Maniatis. Now, I don't think it was surveyed because when you look at the geologic maps, they actually indicate that this is almost all schist, a different rock. So why would you go look in a place that's full of schist? Oh, that was fun. I didn't mean that. Okay. So I had to watch myself. Okay. So, I was able to do a survey with a student in 1998 and again in 1999. And what we found in that area that was highlighted in a valley called the Sangri Valley is all this schist. There's a temple to Demeter right here. It's a German school project. But when you walk over here, it's private land. There's a fence right here. But if you just walk over there, which, oops, I happen to do, there's actually marble quarries here. And it's white. And this was like, why is there a white marble quarry here? This is fantastic. And we ended up surveying this entire plain. And what we also found, not this hill, this is too big, but down in this valley, it looks like it's fairly flat, but there are little mounds. And on top of these mounds, they're capped with white marble. And you go, and then this is an image I made with the drone images, where it's a three-dimensional image. And I can't get it to turn on the computer, but you can actually see the white color above. So this is white marble on top of the schist. So it was just missed because people didn't climb up the hills essentially. Okay. So here again is the same mound, just a different angle. Going into it, you can see the white marble. This is a large quarry pit. Trees have overgrown in it. Looking for tool marks, and we found some. Really heavily weathered, they're very, very subtle. So we think this was an active ancient quarry. Again, just some of the tool marks right there. wedge holes and whatnot, part of the quarrying activity. Additional evidence. So I collected, I went to the Cycladic Ministry of Culture to ask for permission to collect samples from this. And they told me, this isn't ancient, collect all you want, you don't need a permit. So I then went to the Geology Ministry, and they said, IGME, and the IGME said, yes, you can collect samples. So I collected, I remember, 14 samples, and brought them back home and built a database. Okay. What we also did on that same trip is we did have a permit from the Ministry of Culture, and we collected tiny small samples from the feet, no, I already did the foot, from the torsos, the upper torso, the lower torso, and the two left hands. So this is me drilling. The guards watch intently, which is nerve-wracking. I collected my sample, and this is my database. So what we have here, this database, these are the Apollonius quarries. This is the blue hatchy things are the Melanus quarries. But these deep blue circles come from the new samples. The deep blue is Sangre Valley South, and these here are from the Apollo foot and torsos. Okay, so these are the mystery samples here, right there. And this becomes more interesting because now our database, even though it's a little bit like Melanus, we actually do have a more positive oxygen, and it's beginning to overlap with these. I need to do more extensive sampling because I have a feeling we're actually going to increase this with a more thorough sampling. So I'm real excited about this. Oh, that's pixelated. But here's a table of the data that we have. Here's the oxygen 18, oxygen 13 values. And I color-coded the pieces that have pretty much the same isotope values. So the foot and the plinth, the base, and the lower torso, very similar isotope values. Well within the margin of error for the stable isotope analysis. So, and then we have the one left hand of 4095. So it is very likely that this left hand and these three pieces fit together. So are there fragments of the Colossus of the Naxians from one stone block? I said no, but really the answer is, well, most of them are. So not all of them, right? So these lower pieces, yes, and one hand. But what's going on with the upper torso and the other left hand? They look like they're different marble, and they're not from the same stone. So we actually might be looking at 3 different marbles here. Maybe even 3 different statues. So question 2, what is the provenance of the marble? No isn't an answer to the question. I don't understand that. That's in there. But the marble is likely from the newly discovered Sangre Valley. We have one quarry that's extensively sampled, and I'm putting permits in to sample the other ones. It's a bit of a runaround with the Ministry of Culture because they say I don't need a sample permit. I'm telling them it's ancient. And they're saying, then you need a sample permit. But they're saying it's not ancient. So I have to, once I get the first article published, which just came out in January, I'll now ask for another. It's in, you know, how it is. So anyway, I'll get there. I'll get there. Completing the story. Archaeology is always done in chapters, and I don't think we'll ever finish the book, which is great because that keeps us going. But the first chapter, maybe I should call it chapter instead of edition, was just published in January of our work on the Delos statue. We actually were given the cover of the American Journal of Archaeology. So it's been exciting, and no one's written a nasty email to me yet. So I think the work might be good. We'll see. And I think that's all I have. So thank you very much for your time. questions?
If you're open to questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
I noticed that beautiful white plinth for the statue, and yet the London sample looked really dark and did not look like marble at all. Why is the difference between those? Is it more marbly? London?
No. So the London marble had a patina.
Okay.
It was gray. It could be cleaned and polished pretty easily and
it would look bright.
and would look bright. The Delian piece is out in the sun all day. The fact that it is so white suggests to me that it has been cleaned. There's no lichen on it, but I don't know I don't know its cleaning history. The samples I take, it's with a little drill. I go in a millimeter, and I discard that sample, and then I collect what's furthermore, just to make sure there's no surface contamination. And I also always collect the sample from an inconspicuous place that you hopefully wouldn't see, which is why I was behind that one statue and curled up.
Yeah.
I do yoga now. Joyce, you had a question?
Yeah, the amount of samples you collect, is it like 0.1 ounce? What is,
Yeah.
1 teaspoon?
Oh, so much less. 10 milligrams now. So very, very, so pencil, I used to collect a pencil eraser's worth of sample. Now it's like a pencil tip because the instrumentation's gotten so good. But I always like to collect a little extra in case there's an error in the analysis. And ideally, I'd collect a solid piece so I can make a thin section. But no museum in the right mind is going to give me that big a piece. So I don't even ask for it. I just take the dust.
Is the cycladic marble, is that the best? And is that marble used a lot on the mainland? You know, or I mean, I saw, you know, you had the map that showed the various sources around, but there just seemed to be something better about the cycladic.
I mean, I definitely think there's preference, but I also think that preference changes with time. Sculptors, I've talked to sculptors, not the sculptures, sculptors. I've probably talked to sculptors too. And they say that you learn your marble that you work with, so you become an expert with that marble. So someone who might be working at Pentelic marble, which has a lot of impurities in it, still they might prefer it than the Parian marble, which is what is, you know, the perfect marble in grain size, beautiful, translucent. So there's that aspect to it. There's an aesthetic aspect to it as well. There's also a political aspect to it. Who owns the quarry? Where's that marble coming from? So when Athens gained dominance in the 5th and 4th century, they opened up the Pentelic quarries, and the Naxian quarries pretty much shut down. The Pentelic quarries were just huge, and they produced a lot of marble, and they were in Athens' backyard. So there's that economic, political influence as well.
But kind of in the vein of your, so to speak, of the isotope work, are libraries being built for this kind of scholarship so that people can really start to get almost quantitative with the shifts through time?
Yeah, so Norm and a couple colleagues, Maniatis, who I also mentioned, Susan Kane at Oberlin and Lazzarini, in the 1980s organized an organization called Osmosia. The acronym is for the Association for the Study of Marbles and Other Stones Used in Antiquity, Osmosia. And we meet every 2.5 years, still to this date. So there are about 3 or 4 databases that are being used. They're shared amongst colleagues. Another one's being built. I was just asked for my Pendeli samples because the techniques are improving. We're trying some new methods as well, not just isotopes. So I think the question, is there a library? Yes, it's digital. Although I have a Pendeli database, but I've given it to Democritus and also at the Wiener Lab at the American School in Athens. So it sits in 3 places.
Italy is known for some of its marbles as well, like Carrara, for
Carrara,
example.
yeah.
Is there any comparative studies between? Geography plays a role?
They're in our database as well. Yeah, so, I mean, different geologic histories, it's a slightly different place. But we have a lot of the Carrara marbles in our database, as well as marbles from Spain and Bulgaria, Macedonia, Northern Macedonia, Turkey, and a few others. So yes, but they didn't open till later. So I also think it's important for the scientists who do this. Some of the scientists say, no, you can only look at the scientific data and ignore the archaeology and ignore the art history, and just use the data and then apply that to the archaeology. And I think that's wrong, because, for instance, if we know that Carrara didn't open until the 1st century, and we're looking at an archaic statue, it makes no sense to consider. So that's why I didn't mention Italy. So the Italian marbles weren't being used yet in this period. Great question.
Was it always the case that big sculptures were sculptured at the quarry instead of taking a big stone to a certain level?
Yeah, so there's been discussion, a good bit of discussion on that excellent question. And the general belief is, well, when you go back to those sculptures, so let's go back to the beginning here, and you look at it, you see it wasn't finished. I talked a lot. Okay, it wasn't finished, but you got the general shape. You can see the nose, the eyes, the leg coming up. So but they would have left maybe that much dressing on the marble, that much extra space. The thinking is they did that, one, to make it lighter. Why move all that extra weight when you don't need to? But also to see if there are any impurities in the marble. Because you'd hate to drag a marble all the way to wherever and then find out, oh, there's a crack in it, or there's a big chunk of chlorite just right where something shouldn't be. So, the thought is to check the quality of the marble as well as to make it less light. But they left a dressing on it, so if it got dinged, it wouldn't mar it.
Any ideas on how they transported it?
Yeah, that's. Can you imagine? So, I think if there's a will, there's a way. Big stones have been moved all around the world, right? Easter Island, Stonehenge. So, one thing the drone did, I didn't show it, maybe I should have done that, is we found the slipway from this quarry. So they would have cleared a path, and they would have dragged it down. Maybe it would have been on logs, maybe it would have been on some sort of sled, but we can see where that went. At Mount Pentelicon, and I did discuss that in this presentation, the work my students did there was phenomenal, because they could see the ancient road that they used as a slipway, but what they also found were the holes where they stuck poles in sets of 3, and they had a sort of a belay system, a braking system. And you can see those placed evenly down the slip road, so when they were dragging these large blocks down, they had control for their. So they knew what they were doing. And then the slipway ended, in Apollonius, ended right at the bay, and they would have put it onto a ship of some sort. Probably, my guess is that, well, I don't know, but what I'm thinking would be a really interesting study is to see how many shipwrecks, essentially, there are at the ports where they were loading the marble. Well, I have to remember that question, because I want to do that project, and then get a little submersible drone and go down there. Ooh, wow. Okay, fun. Okay, next project. No, but that'd be great. To do that here, do that at Naxos, and do that on a couple other quarries would be really interesting. Naxos has wonderful beachside quarries, which would be fun to do. Any other questions?
I know it's a different area, but did they find marble on Crete in Santorini?
Geologically, they don't have marble there, but there is marble that was brought in later times. So on Akrotiri in the Bronze Age, on Crete, and Santorini and Thera, I don't believe they found any. They might have 1 or 2 pieces, as I recall, but not in industry. Nothing big. If anyone knows differently, please correct me. And on Crete, Bronze Age, again, they don't have marble, but they did have a lot of trade on Crete. So I can imagine marble pieces being traded, but not in industry. Like small trades, but not in industry.
I was always astonished when you, on Santorini, you walk the streets and it's paved with marble, and it just seems so exotic.
Yeah, that's diesel engines. Yeah, that was brought in and shipped in. I love Athens and Santorini because you walk down the sidewalk and it's literally marble. And here marble is so prized and precious and expensive. And there it's really not a good paving stone because when it's wet, it's slippery. And but it's what's there, which is to me just fascinating. All right, well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you all very much for joining us tonight. For those of you who are new here, if you have any questions about the Hellenic-American Cultural Center Museum, please stop by our table. And if you haven't had the chance yet, our museum is upstairs and we'll keep it open. I do want to invite you to a few upcoming events. Speaking of the museum, we'll be opening our newest exhibit in June, and it's going to be about textile arts. So please keep an eye out for more. And a very exciting opportunity we have at the end of May. On May 31st, we'll be participating in the Archaeology Roadshow, which normally I would do my best to try and explain, but we actually have the organizer here tonight. So I will say goodnight. Please come say hello, but I would like to welcome to the podium Dr. Virginia Butler.
Well, thank you for coming to the podium. Thank you so much, Maria. I see a lot of OAS people out there, and you've definitely been involved in this. But back almost in 2012, I'm a retired faculty now at PSU, but at that time, I started working with students on public outreach, realizing there's so much interest in history and archaeology at faraway places, but also right here in Oregon. And so we started this event that's basically a multi-hour celebration where organizations like Oregon Archaeological Society, now the Hellenic-American Society, they're going to join us, federal agencies, tribes. Basically, we've had as many as 30 to 35 of the many organizations in our region create temporary exhibits that showcase recent projects they've worked on, or to just tell good stories about archaeology and history that have been revealed in their work. This year, we're doing it at the end of May, and we've usually done it downtown at PSU, but for various reasons, we decided to shift to East Portland, and it's at Gateway Discovery Park, which is a City of Portland park, a very diverse community in East Portland. It seems like we have an opportunity to engage a really different community. We're thrilled, and we have 35 organizations, and half of them are brand new, including, I learned about the Hellenic-American Museum and Cultural Organization, the Japanese American Museum, the Chinatown Museum, Jim Pepper, Native Arts Council. I mean, the list goes on. My heart wells up with the level of passion and commitment to archaeology, history, stewardship that this program provides. But I'm just going to try to look at all of you in the eye. I really want to see you there. It's so much fun. I mean, there's people in the crowd that have been to these before. They're just kind of tremendous. There's so much challenge in the world today. I mean, I know many of us are heavy. For whatever politics, we carry a lot. And I think it's events like this tonight, it's events that bring us together in these community projects that tell us just how much good stuff is happening, and we just have to be reminded of it and keep elevating that. So we've left some of these flyers here. I invite you to come pick one up, and you'll get some details. So ask me any questions. Thank you so much.
One of the wonderful things about Archaeology Roadshow, it's a family event. It's hands-on, and you can use the atlatl. And
you can throw an atlatl spear. We're going to have probably someone to make some, give people experience making pottery, weaving, making stone tools, you know, a lot of good hands-on stuff, and definitely family-friendly, all ages welcome.